Hello and welcome to Japanatron. My name's Dave Pavlina, and Japanatron is a podcast about Japan, as you may have guessed, life in Japan and Japanese culture. So let's get into it. Today's topic, and I've been wanting to do this one for a while now, is dating and nightlife. A very interesting topic. I'm not going to talk about what's the same, when it comes to, like, the U.S. and Japan. I mean, Japan has bars, it has restaurants. We all know what those are, so no need to define that. It's not really all that interesting or different. So I'm going to focus on things that during my life in Japan, I said, whoa, that's kind of different. That's a little different here, a little interesting, maybe good, maybe bad. I don't know. Let's see where we end up. Okay, the first one I want to cover is called the gokon, also known as the kompa. The rough translation of this is like a singles party, like a Japanese version of a singles party. And there's some interesting differences here. When I think of a U.S., an American Western style singles party, I think of kind of the house party culture. In the U.S. we have bigger houses, so we'll throw a house party and you invite a bunch of friends and friends of friends and friends and friends and friends, and you fill your house with a bunch of, mutual kind of friends, that way. It's like a Facebook phenomenon. And you all hang out and meet each other, and, your buddy's girlfriend's roommate or something may be a cute girl or a cute guy or something that you want to talk to, and you meet through this way. That's almost like a singles party, right? And then there's other things in the U.S., those dating, speed dating and whatever. Anyways, Japan has this thing called the gokon, and it's pretty cool. Japan doesn't have house party culture, so they do things at restaurants usually. And they do these things where they get a balanced number of guys and girls. For example, 5 guys, 5 girls. And it might be like like a guy and a girl who are dating already, and then the guy invites like 4 of his single friends, and the girl invites 4 of hers. Or maybe just like people all living in the same dorm, But you gotta have the balanced numbers. That's really kind of the main rule with gokons. And you go out to a restaurant, and, you get 5 and 5, so it's perfectly balanced. And it's kind of like almost speed dating, I want to say. But it's cool because you're with your friends, like your friend invited you along, your guy friend, and you meet friends, the girls are like friends of friends or whatever. So it's almost similar to that house party thing, but they're going to do it at a restaurant, and they make sure that the numbers are balanced, which doesn't always happen, of course, in the U.S. with house parties. You might have, what's called a sausage fest. You get like a house full of dudes, and there's like 1 or 2 girls there, and you're like, oh, Jesus, let's get out of here. This is a sausage fest. With a gokon, you're guaranteed there's going to be a girl for you, okay? Now, or a girl or a guy for you. And so it's cool is that you'll be sitting there, and, oftentimes they'll do almost like a formal introduction. They'll go around in a circle, and you stand up, and you say, hey, my name is, I know such and such, or whatever, my hobbies, I don't know. Some kind of, like, introduction, because you're all kind of having dinner. It's like a dinner party, I guess. I guess that's a good definition of it. It's a dinner party. It's a dinner singles party. And it's got to have that balanced number. Okay, and you go around and introduce yourselves. And the cool thing is there's often these rules where, the bummer would be if you're stuck talking to someone you're not into or you're not attracted to, or it's just not working out. So often with gokons, they'll have this kind of rotation rule. Okay, let's everyone rotate. Let's switch partners. Don't be stuck there talking to the same guy or girl all night, okay? And then, if you're hitting it off with someone, you don't really want to end it, but hey, you can get their number, their digits, and, go on an individual date later on. So the idea of the gokon is that you meet new people, and you're in this kind of environment that's friendly. You're out at a restaurant having a good dinner, drinking. Hopefully the food is good, and it's kind of a cool idea. I always thought this would work relatively well in the U.S. I think we have our own take on it, like I said, with the house parties and speed dating and all those things. So I don't know. We already kind of have our own flavor of Gokon, if you will. So I don't know. It would be interesting though, is if someone kind of marketed it in the U.S. as like a Japanese style singles party or a Japanese style, or even just called it a Gokon. I don't know if that would catch on. It's just interesting. I always thought that's kind of a cool way. It's kind of like your friend has a girlfriend and he's going to introduce, his girlfriend's going to hook you up and just let's put together this kind of party. And the thing I liked about it is it's very casual. There's no real says that you have to hook up with someone, or you're all like looking for love, and you're trying to find the one, or you're trying to find your marriage partner or something like that. I think they're popular with college students, of course. It has a very casual kind of image to it. So that's the Gokon, also known as the Kompa. I like to tell some stories. I want to know about 3 of them in my life. Okay, which isn't that many, but when I was living in Tolteri, I was single, and people were always telling me this, you got to do Gokon, you're young, you're single. Let's put this together. Let's hook this up. So I met a guy who owned a bar, and I'll go into that later because this bar turned out to be interesting. But he owned a bar and said, "Hey, why don't we hook up like a Gokon? It'd be an interesting Japanese experience for you, a Japanese dude." And I'm like, I'd heard of this. I already knew what a Gokon was. I'm like, yeah, this sounds fun. It sounds interesting. I could always go, hey, you want to meet these girls? Hey, I'm not gonna turn it down. So the catch was I had to bring a guy, and of course the owner of the bar, they said, bring a foreigner, okay, because that's got appeal to it, especially in a countryside town like Tolteri. So unfortunately for me, I was into the whole, I didn't really want to hang out too much with the foreigners. I had nothing against them, of course. I was living in countryside Japan, and I didn't really move out there to make friends with a bunch of foreigners. Not, like I said, not that I had anything wrong with them. I didn't have any bad blood or anything with them. It's just I chose hey, I'm in the countryside Japan. I should try to make some Japanese friends, really experience the genuine culture. I didn't come all the way out to Japan to hang out with a bunch of white dudes. So I knew one foreigner, which was my coworker at Eon, the English language school. So I was hoping maybe he knew someone else. But it didn't really happen, and it was fine because he said, it's fine, we could just bring your coworker, and then we got me, and it was 3 guys. It was a 3-and-3, 3x3 Gokon. And so he hooked this up, we went, and the girls were a little bit older because the owner of the bar was a little bit older. But it was cool. They were nice. They were sweet girls. I don't know what happened though. We went out to dinner. And then we kind of almost did an after party. After the dinner, we were having a good time, and we decided to go out to a darts bar. And so we hopped in a taxi, and we did an after party with it almost. And we're hanging out at the darts bar, and I don't know, it just started going south. I don't know. We kept going to place after place. We started at his bar for before dinner drinks. Then we did dinner, and that was fun. And yeah, the chemistry was fine. It wasn't. I wasn't getting the feeling that we were really meeting the loves of our lives, but it was a fun time. It was good. My coworker didn't speak much Japanese, which was interesting. But the thing is, the liquor was flowing, and I don't know. I hate to say it, but it started becoming a blur after a while, and that was because of the massive amounts of liquor. by the third place, like I said, we did pre-dinner drinks at his bar, we did dinner, then we ended up at this darts bar, and that's where it started going south, because we had a large amount of alcohol in our stomach by this time. And I don't know what happened, we just started hanging out with other people at the darts bar. And I must have been insanely drunk, because this night started becoming a blur. And we hopped in a taxi. I do remember going home. And here's the funny part. It was in the dead of winter, and it was snowing like crazy. There was like at least a foot of snow on the ground already. And I was bundled up, of course. But when I woke up the next morning, I had no jacket. Like, I had left all that stuff at the darts bar. Like, my leather jacket and my heavy leather jacket for, the really warm one, and my scarf and everything. So I just went home with just like jeans and a shirt on in the dead of winter. Now, granted, we just hopped in a taxi, but I just think that's kind of funny, is that I was that drunk that I just walked out of the bar with just a shirt on. totally forgot everything. I mean, I could have left my wallet there for God's sake. Anyways, long story short, it was a good time. We got way too drunk. I think the girls probably got a little upset at that, because we kind of ditched them. I guess after a point, we just kind of started doing our own thing almost. There wasn't a second follow-up date for either of us with that one. But it was a good time. I do admit, for my first Gokon, it was fun. I think the follow-up ones, I told myself, hey, Dave, you probably shouldn't drink as much. You're with ladies, I was a gentleman, I didn't do anything rash. But I did get way too drunk for my own good, and that probably made a bad first impression. I mean, you have to keep in mind, a Gokon is, it's a first impression. It's a singles dinner party is basically the way I'm going to define it. Okay, incident number 2. Again, same guy with the bar. This is another very small one. This time, the proprietor of the bar did not join us. I wonder why. He brought just 2 girls, again, friends of his, acquaintances or something. A little older, of course, again. The guy was a little older than us. But again, we knew what to expect because of the first one, so that was fine. We were fine with older women. Japanese women, even though they're older, they look younger, so cool. That was fine. We didn't care. They're very sweet. They're very sweet. And I'm not going to say that as a predecessor to saying that they weren't attractive. They were cute. They weren't like model gorgeous. I wasn't expecting that, but they were very sweet. And again, I brought my coworker, and this time we're more in control. We went easy on the pre-dinner drinks this time, and we just did dinner. We didn't do the follow-up after party at bar after bar. We didn't do bar hopping. Okay, so we kept our heads on our shoulders this time. We were more in control, which was good. And we had a good time. They were very sweet girls, and this time, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say girls, they were women. They were women. And I kind of hit it off. The personality of this one woman, she's an elementary school teacher, very genki, as they say, very outgoing, very energetic, full of life. And I did go on a follow-up date with her. And she didn't really speak any English at all, and my Japanese was pretty rough around the edges. It still is. So it made for an interesting follow-up date, and we did like lunches, those like really casual lunches. We didn't really want to do the evening dates. And she had a car, which was a bonus for me, living in the countryside with no car, because I had my bicycle. What a big winner I am. What a catch. The English teacher with the bicycle. Yeah. So, I don't know. It just didn't go anywhere. But I had a good time at the Gokon. And it's interesting. I want to make a side note, which Gokon's really taught me. And this is a life lesson. I like to say I have learned is I like the balance in nature about how it's interesting that the less attractive person you may meet at the Gokon usually has the better personality. And this last one we went, this incident number 2, the cuter girl, the more physically attractive one, which is the person that my coworker latched onto. He always, gravitated towards the more attractive one. Hey, God bless him. I would too. But it taught me a nice lesson, is that the more attractive one had the lesser personality, and the slightly lesser attractive one physically had the more attractive personality. And I like that. I love how that works out. It's just nature's balance. It tells me that the world and nature and everything, yin and yang, it's all fair. Okay? The fat girl, the fat girl has the sweetest personality. Okay? The unattractive dude with the beer belly, the balding guy with the glasses, he's the sweetest guy in the world. He will treat you like a queen, like a princess. Okay? That's the way life is, man. And I love that. Because it's fair. It tells me it's fair. I cannot fucking stand it when I meet like a model hot girl that's like Mother Teresa. Now, this has never happened, fortunately. But it drives me nuts when I meet a really, really good looking girl and she's like super sweet. There's a voice in the back of my head telling me, what is wrong with her? There's got to be something wrong. There's got to be a dark side. There's got to be some kind of evil, murderous problem, some dark underbelly to this girl that is hidden, okay? And it really makes me suspicious, because if you can't see the flaw, apparently you're gonna get it eventually. If she's like super hot, there's something wrong there, okay? It just drives me crazy. You can't have it all. You can't have it all. It will drive me nuts, okay, if it's like Mother Teresa, that's super hot model. Okay. So it's just fair. It all works out. I love it. When I see a model hot Supergirl and I talk to her and she's a total bitch or totally dumb or just like the personality isn't there, I love it. I take a deep breath and life is fair. I love that. Okay, I digress. That's what Gokon's taught me. Last little story is Gokon number 3. And this is one I sort of hooked up myself. Okay, I had gone on these first 2, almost like training missions. And I was like, hey, number 3, let's hook this up myself. Let's do it. And what happened was I went to a beach party that a foreigner in Tolteri had set up. He was kind of the local long-term living in Tolteri foreigner. And he did this like yearly beach party, which was wild. It was awesome. Because Tolteri, being so countryside, it didn't really have much in the way of parties and stuff. Okay. So, anyways, we went to this beach party, and I met this super cute girl. Really nice. Okay, and I was worried, okay, what's wrong with her? Anyways, super cute girl, got the digits, okay, kind of started texting each other, whatnot, and she suggested, I guess she suggested it, didn't it? I guess it was her idea. Let's do a Gokon. I'm like, hey, that's a great idea, because if we go out with just one-on-one, there's a little bit more pressure, But with this, you got a wingman, it's more casual. You're with friends, It's like a friend group date. So it's kind of cool. So we hooked it up. It was me and this girl. Now the problem was that I was really interested in this one girl, which kind of breaks one of the rules of Gokon, which is, you got to rotate, right? But fortunately, I think her friends knew that. So we were going to hook up a 3x3. Okay, so it was going to be me and this girl, and then she was going to bring 2 friends. I was supposed to bring 2. Of course, I had my coworker again. I asked him, hey, I don't really know. She wanted foreigners, of course. I don't know. Some kind of obsession with that in the countryside of Japan. Bring a foreigner. Bring a foreign dude. It'll be interesting. So 3 Japanese girls and 3 foreigner dudes. That's what we were going for. I asked him, hey, can you bring a friend? He's like, don't worry, I got it. We're meeting in front of this restaurant. So my coworker's there, and I'm like, hey, where's your friend? He's like, let me call him up. Dude cancels on us. I'm like, oh no, man, it's messed up. It's one thing for a friend not to come to a house party. It's not even anything if he doesn't come. So who cares? But with a Go-Con, you got that rule, man. You got 3x3. You got 3 girls coming. You got to produce 3 guys. And I'm like, damn, this is embarrassing. 3 girls are going to show up, and then we got 2 dudes. We look like a bunch of assholes. So, anyways, girl shows up. Actually, 2 girls show up. And I say, I'm so sorry, the 3rd guy canceled on us. And she was cool with it. And she said, don't worry, the 3rd girl's actually running late. Okay, so don't worry about it. So we go into the restaurant, and it was cool because it was really small, of course. We had 2 and 2. But it was fine because I was super interested in this one girl. And the friend she brought was pretty cute too. And so my friend was happy, I just we just introduced him to this girl, and so we're just all sort of sitting there and talking. Unfortunately, I was kind of like really into this girl, and I should have tried to make it more of a kind of a group conversation. But we're having a good conversation. I was having a great conversation with the girl. She was an English teacher, Japanese girl, so we had that in common, and so it was going well. I was trying to bring her friend into the conversation. It was a tough balance, though, because her friend didn't speak English. She did, of course, because she's an English teacher. And my friend didn't really speak Japanese. So we're trying to kind of balance out this communication. And with her friend being the English teacher, like super fluent in both, of course, native in Japanese and fluent in English, she was kind of playing translator. But it was working out. Because it was small. 3rd girl shows up, okay, and she's like really cute. So my friend was really happy because he had like 2 girls to himself, basically. So he was like in heaven here. It was a good time, despite the mess up with the balance, the guy not showing up. So it was okay, and they were happy despite the guy not showing up. And at the end, it was cool. And of course, her friends knew I was super interested in her, and she's like, "Hey, let's do this again." So, I follow up with her, and but it was interesting is that she sort of said like, I wanted to kind of go on a solo date. I was like, should we do another Go-Con, or can I just kind of start going on a solo date with her? Because it went so well at the Go-Con. There's no problems with the conversation there. So I kind of went in for the solo date, and she sort of told me like, I'm kind of going out with this other guy in another city. And I'm like, oh. So basically I got the feeling it's not going to happen with this girl. And then she's like, oh, but, we can do another Go-Con. And I'm like, why? That's kind of awkward. Like, you just told me it's not going to happen because you're sort of going out with another dude and you want to go on another Go-Con. So, of course, my friend wanted to make it happen, but I kind of didn't do it. And maybe, I don't know, maybe I should have. I don't know. Write in and let me know your opinion on this. But I just got the feeling it's not going to happen solo with this girl, because once I asked for the solo date, she's like, I'm kind of going out with a guy. And I'm like, why do you want to do a Go-Con then? I don't know, maybe I should have, because on second thought, I could have met one of her friends. I don't know, but that is kind of weird. Like, she just kind of passes me off to a friend of hers. I don't know. Anyways, it didn't happen. Then an interesting thing happened was her friend contacted me and wanted to set up Go-Con number 4, the follow-up one. So she wanted to make it happen. Okay, and she said, hey, we don't even have to bring my friend, the one that you were interested in. And so I was thinking about it, and it was weird. She lived in another city, actually, like over an hour away. Okay, she was going to bring 2 friends. She wanted me to bring, my coworker and hopefully another foreign guy. And so my friend said, what, the foreign guy is not going to come. My friend's not going to come. So I had a student, Japanese dude, real hilarious guy, outgoing, and I'm like, man, this guy's gonna be a blast at a go-con. Maybe we should do this. So I brought it up with him. I knew he was single, and he's like, yeah, dude, let's totally do it. This will be fun. I found out from the girl, though, that her friends also live in this city, like over an hour away, and they were just like passing through. And I don't know, I got the strong impression that they didn't really see it as like a normal go-con. Like, hey, let's meet these dudes. They might be cool, and maybe we can go on a date or something. I don't know. I just got the strong feeling that they wanted to just, they were like, had some kind of weird foreigner, like obsession. It's hard to explain. Just a weird taste in my mouth. Like, almost like dance, monkey, dance for us. We want to go out on this go-con because you're foreigners and it's got some weird twisted appeal to it. So I actually turned it down. And again, write in and tell me your opinion on this. Because I just got this weird, like, you're just passing through. It was just weird. It's just like a one-time thing, and it had no possibility of any kind of follow-up. And I felt like that was going to be a big letdown, especially if the guys were, especially if the girls were going to be like really cute and they're like, oh, we're going back to our town over an hour away. And I don't know. It was just like, I really got the feeling it was going to be a one-time thing, so I turned it down. Anyways, that's my go-con stories. So, yeah, I hope that explains well what a go-con is. I thought that was kind of interesting because I've never heard of anything like that in the U.S. Like I said, the most similar thing is maybe like a dinner party, singles party type of thing. Moving on, I want to talk about the dance events in Tottori especially. Now, Tokyo, a city this size, we got the normal, Western bars and clubs, dance clubs. They're not as big, but I don't really want to get into that because there's not really that many differences. There's not really much interesting there to talk about, at least for me. So I want to talk about Tottori because that had an interesting thing with the dance and club and nightlife events. Because it was so countryside, they didn't really even have a dance club. They did events at these like spaces that would host these things, these dance events. And it was maybe once or twice a month. And because it was so rare, everyone in the whole town went. And it was funny because it was almost like in like someone's garage or something, and there'd be like a DJ. And the music was so-so. The drinks were fine because they were not too expensive because this is not Tokyo, this is Tottori, this is the countryside. And it was interesting. It's just funny to note because it told me that these dance events told me very vividly that Japan does not have Western dance culture. Okay. In the US, you got school dances, you got prom, you got that whole culture with pair dance. Slow dancing, whatever. Dancing, guy dances with a girl, dance floor, dance club, hip hop, blah, blah, blah. You got that whole culture. And Japan, of course, has that, but it's been imported. And traditionally, they don't have that. They don't have school dances, really. They don't have prom. Hell no, they don't have prom. And their traditional dances like Matsuri, it's festivals. They do these group dances in circles. It's almost like country line dancing, I want to say. It's not pair dance. It's not meet a girl on the dance floor, lovey-dovey dance. It's big group festival dance. And I saw that at this dance event, and it was funny. Is they had a DJ playing like techno. Okay, and you'd expect Western style kind of pair dance, just a big chaotic dance floor with dudes kind of grinding up against, cute girls or trying to, like, hey, baby. So it wasn't that though. And I started laughing because I go to this dance event and everyone is facing the same direction, which was very odd to me. Almost like they're at a concert. But there's nothing to look at. The DJ is like off to the side, and everyone's just kind of facing a wall, looking at the same direction. Like I said, it looked like country line dancing. That's the best way I can explain it. And at the same time, I want to say it almost looked cult-like. like they're worshiping the sun or something. Ah, the sun, we love you, om, om. It was so weird. It was almost like you have to stand here. This is your position. You're in position 14. You dance here. You must face this direction. It looked very rigid and very prepared. Not the chaotic kind of dance floor. And I said, why the hell? What's the point? Like, how do you meet a girl? You're not even dancing with anyone. You're just standing there dancing by yourself, all facing the same direction. It looked very odd to me. And this is really the only place I've ever seen this. When I went to dance clubs in Tokyo, of course, it was more Western style. It was a chaotic dance floor. But I thought that was kind of interesting. I didn't know if that was only specific to Tottori or just the Japan countryside, but it looked very cult-like. Okay. The thing I did like is, like I said, it was a small town, so everyone was there. It's like, hey, the guy from the bar, and the waiter from last night at the izakaya. Everyone's there. Your students, tons of your students would show up. If you're an English teacher, all the English teachers in the town would be there, like every foreigner in the town. That was kind of cool. It had that kind of country feeling to it, but it was funny. It's like a Japanese version of a country barn house dance. Let's do the barn house dance. So that was kind of funny. And like I said, it was so rare that it had that appeal. It's like, oh, this once a month, you got to go. Everyone's going to go to this thing. So it was kind of cool. One interesting side note, speaking about this dancing, this Western style dancing and whatnot, I heard recently, I don't really go to dance clubs anymore, of course. I'm an old dude in Tokyo anymore. And a friend of mine told me that at many dance clubs, bars, clubs, whatever, in Roppongi, I don't know if other areas in Tokyo, but dancing's been banned. And part of the reason is they say that Japanese girls were complaining a lot about, the aggressive foreign dudes grinding up on them, So it's just interesting to note is that Japan isn't really necessarily into this Western style aggressive grind up against me culture. That's not their culture. They weren't brought up on that. They weren't brought up on that. They didn't have prom with dudes grinding up on them, wearing tuxedos. So yeah, it was interesting to note. It almost reminded me of Footloose. In the movie Footloose, dancing's banned. It's not Christian. So it's just funny is that a friend of mine told me, he's like, yeah, dancing's been banned in Roppongi. Now, I don't know the details of this, but I think it's true. I guess maybe it depends on the bar or club, but apparently dancing is banned at several dance clubs. Can you call yourself a dance club anymore in Roppongi? And maybe it's throughout Tokyo as well. I don't know. It's interesting. I'd say Roppongi probably because of all the foreigners there. That's the big foreigner hangout. So I don't know. Interesting to note that they went footloose in Roppongi. Moving on. This is a really interesting one. Very Japanese because I've never seen anything like this. I want to talk about hostess clubs. Hostess clubs and hostess bars. Now, the definition of this, and you're going to freak out if you've never been to Japan. Think of a strip club, but there's no stripping. A strip club without the stripping. Now, if you've ever been to a strip club in the U.S., you know that you go there and there's tons of girls and it's just amazingly easy to meet girls. They just come up to you and start talking to you. Oh my God, what a fantastic place this is. Yeah, that's because they work there, okay? And they kind of flirt with you, and they kind of give you that feeling like, wow, this girl's like into me. She's like flirting with me. Okay, and then there's like, then you get a lap dance or a table dance and she takes her clothes off and then you give her the money and then that's it. So you realize quickly, if you have a brain on your shoulders, if you have a head on your shoulders, that a strip club in the U.S., yes, there's that flirting element, but really it's just a business transaction, right? They're making money. Okay, it's just a predecessor to convince you to purchase one of their additional services, namely a lap dance or a table dance. Now, imagine that, but without that. Think of just the flirting element, and that's a hostess club. You go there, the girls are just dressed to the nines, just look elegant in these like evening gowns or whatnot. Young, pretty girls, of course, just like at a strip club, but they keep their clothes on. And you sit there and they flirt with you. It's like a flirt club. That's what we should call it, a flirt club. That's what a hostess club is. And the drinks are astronomically expensive, and you got to buy the girl drinks, okay? But she works for the club. So I don't know. To me, it seems silly because obviously she's talking to you just to make money for the club, and you just got to buy her drinks, as you're talking to her, okay? And she could probably pound them down so that she's making more money for the club. But that's really the point of it. She's walking around and she's flirting with you, and you're buying her drinks, okay? Now, I never understood that. Like, why the hell would you just do that? Like, what's the point? She's obviously just using you to make money. But I think, and this is one of those things that's just dark and hidden and secret in Japan, is that hostess clubs, I guess there's the potential for more, okay? You ask the girl for her phone number. Now, you usually don't do that at a strip club in the U.S., right? I mean, the stripper probably gets that all the time. But, I don't know. To me, a strip club is no place to hit on girls. Okay, I don't know. They probably get it all the time, but, it's just such an obvious thing. Like, you hit on a stripper. God, I don't know. Are you really going to date her? I don't know. But I guess in the hostess club, she's not taking her clothes off. You're not paying her for a lap dance. They're kind of setting up this thing like, hey... it's more elegant. It's more refined. She's sitting there flirting with you. You're buying her drinks. Sure, they're expensive, and you're paying the bar all this money. But hey, you might get something out of it. And I think there is that. I think that's the reason they go and they spend all this money. The Japanese dudes. And a student of mine, an older guy, business guy, married. Interestingly enough, married. He had what's called a bottle at this bar. He spent an astronomical amount of money on his own bottle of whiskey. That's the drink of choice at these places, with his name on it at the bar. And so he'd go there and he'd work through this bottle that was astronomically expensive. It's kind of like almost like a membership, I want to say. And he said, hey, let me take you here. Now, some guys do this as a thing with their clients. They take a client out for a business thing, and it's not a strip club, it's classier. So I guess it is acceptable in Japan to take a business client to a hostess club, and you're sitting there flirting with the girls, and this potential, business partner is buying your drinks, and showing you a good time, okay? And it's classy because the girls are keeping their clothes on. So I guess that's an appeal to it as well. Anyways, he takes me out, and of course, this girl is super cute, okay? All these girls are showing up, and there's like the mama-san, which is like the older kind of overseer, okay? She's pretty too, but she's like she's like a former queen. She's a little bit, advanced in age, I want to say. Okay, but they're all dressed up, and we're sitting there, and he's pouring me his whiskey, and I appreciated that, and he didn't make me pay a dime, so I'm not going to refuse it. But the guy showed me a good time. It was interesting, and, the girl, of course, is very outgoing and flirtatious, of course, but in a classy way. She's not all, like, drunk and all over you, like a stripper may be, but it's a classy time. And the guy said, I was single at the time, and the girl wasn't much younger than me. We're on the same age. The guy was older, so he wasn't going to do anything. He was married, but he was cool. He wasn't a cheat or anything like that. So I don't know how the wife would feel. She probably knows, but I don't know. Maybe she's cool with it because the girls keep their clothes on. Anyways, he said we're at this hostess club. He's like, hey, why don't you give David why don't you give him your number? Okay, and she does. And she was cool with it. And so he was kind of trying to hook me up. And I appreciated it. She was cute, of course. And I'm like, what do I do? She's a hostess. It's like, I didn't really understand what's the protocol on this. It felt awkward. It was almost like I asked a stripper out. I don't know. It's just very awkward for me. And so I did call her up because my student is like, dude, you got to call her. Come on. She's like super cute. Come on. You got to do this. Dude, he told me point blank, you know what? I want to live vicariously through you. Okay, so you got to call her. You got to go out with this girl. Because if I was your age and I was single, I would totally ask this girl out in a second. Okay, I'm older. I'm married. I have kids. I just want to see. I want to live vicariously through you. I want this to happen. So I call her up, and she agrees to go out. And I'm like, I don't know. Is this some kind of extension of the hostess club? Is this some kind of business transaction? I don't know. So we go out, and I take her on a date, and it's a first date, so I pay. I didn't do Dutch thing on a first date. I don't do that. I say if it's a first date and I'm asking, I'm gonna pay. So I take her out to a relatively classy restaurant, not like super expensive. Come on, I'm an English teacher. And so we go out, and it's all right. She's kind of actually, at the hostess club, she was a little different, of course, as you'd expect. Her personality was a little bit more quiet during the date. And she wasn't all that interesting as the conversation went on, because you run out of stuff to talk to. You got like the base information, the where you're from and what you do in your family and whatnot. And anyways, we went out on maybe a couple dates, and I just got the weird feeling this just wasn't happening. Like, I was really attracted to her physically, but again, like I said with the balance thing, her personality wasn't all that, and like I said, I was almost satisfied because she was so good looking. And it just told me again with the balance, you can't go after the super hot girls if you want a personality on her. I don't know what happened. There was this awkward moment where after one of the dates, I tried to kiss her and she did the cheek thing. Ooh. Like I went in for the kiss, the goodnight kiss, and she turned the cheek. Ooh. Yeah, awkward. Yeah, so I decided after that incident, I'm not going to call her back. That was really awkward. And I even told my student kept, probing me for info. How's it going with this girl? And I told him that story, and he's like, ooh, awkward. Yeah, we both agreed. That was one thing we could agree on. Japanese guy, American dude, we both agreed that was awkward. And she called me for a follow-up, and I got the strong impression that she wanted a foreigner friend because she studied English abroad, and she had just moved back to Tolteri, and she wanted to keep up her English. It was almost like a free English lesson or something for her, and she wanted to keep me kind of on the leash, on the string, as kind of a guy friend that she could go out with for a drink and have some English practice. And I'm like, oh, that's going to drive me crazy because you're way too hot. You're way too cute for that. That's going to drive me crazy. Yeah, I just want an English language partner friend. Oh, she didn't say that, but I really got that strong impression. So that just sort of fizzled out. I kind of, I don't know if I didn't return her call or she didn't return mine. Anyways, yeah, I just kind of gave up on it. It was just going to get really frustrating. And, I figure, if it's meant to be, it just really works out from the beginning. I mean, I don't know, I'm all for that, never give up and just keep fighting for what you want. But man, when you meet a girl or a guy, a member of the opposite sex, and it's just a struggle from the beginning, man, I don't know, it's just a bummer. Just, the things that have worked out, when a date has turned into a girlfriend or a relationship, it was just way different. It just worked out from the beginning, like we hit it off from the beginning, and she returns my calls, and there's really no problems with that. There's no games, and I like that, and I hate the game playing thing. So, I don't know, like I don't know. I'm just not that type to do the game. You got to wait this many days and all that. All that stuff presented in the movie Swingers. it just seems to me, if it works out, it works out. And if I go in for a goodnight kiss and she turns a cheek, oh, that's never going to happen. That's just no amount of like going out and dating and getting to know her and attempting another kiss attempt. No, this is not going to happen. If I get a cheek, I have failed. I have failed completely. I have crashed and burned, and I should dust myself off and move on to the next. Okay, which is what I did with this one. So, okay, moving on. I want to talk more about hostess clubs. I want to talk about hostess bars. Now, these are interesting because these are basically hostess clubs in disguise. They look like bars, but they don't have the typical hostess setup. And I got tricked. I was frequenting a bar, and I had no idea until someone told me, yeah, that's a hostess bar, okay? I went to this bar, and basically it was just like any other bar. It was pretty small. It had a bar area, and it had some tables. But the only exception was the bartenders were super hot girls. And that should have told me from the beginning that something was up with this bar. But I had no clue. I just thought that the owner of the bar, which is the friend of mine that I mentioned, I befriended the owner of this bar. This turned out to be a hostess bar, okay? I had no idea. I thought it was just a bar where the guy was hiring super hot bartenders. Okay, a friend of mine took me to this bar, a different student, and we sat at a table. And the drinks were what you would expect to pay at a bar. They were reasonable. So the thing is hanging out there with a friend, and we're, just having a drink at a bar. And I'm like, damn, this bar is cool, man. The bartenders are hot. I'm coming back here. So I decided, as sort of, I want to say, a Japanese study technique, after teaching English, now English school, I would finish work around 9 p.m., which is perfect time to go to a bar. So after work, and the greatest thing I want to mention is that I didn't have work the next day until maybe noon or 12 the next day. So you could go to a bar after work, no problem, and have a few drinks, and you'd be fine for work the next day because you didn't start until noon at the earliest. So that was kind of cool about life when I was teaching English in the countryside. So anyways, I'm like, you know what? I want to go to this bar, and to study Japanese, I'm gonna talk to these cute girls that work at the bar as my study technique. Okay, that's the way I'm gonna practice Japanese. That's what I resolved to do, and I thought that would keep me motivated for fairly obvious reasons. So I started frequenting this bar, and the first thing I noticed is that when I sat at the bar, which obviously sitting at the bar would give you an opportunity to talk to the cute girls. Number one, the first drink was way more expensive. They tagged on like a 1,000 yen, like a $10 sitting at the bar fee, okay, which is what they had. And they had this on the menu. So I realized, I'm like, oh, that first drink was really expensive. Why? And I see this sitting at the bar fee on the menu. If you sit at the bar, your first drink of the night is very, very expensive. It's plus $10. Okay, I'm like, damn, that sucks. But I wasn't too bummed about that because there's no tipping in Japan. So I'm like, okay, I don't have to tip this girl. Okay, that's the first thing I noticed. Second thing I noticed is the girl just talked to me. I mean, she didn't ignore me or anything, and the patron to bartender ratio was awesome. There may be like 3 dudes at the bar at most, and there's like 2 or 3 bartenders. So most likely when I go to the bar, and Tolteri, like on a weeknight after school, I was like the only dude at the bar, and there'd be like 2 super hot girls working there. I started frequenting this place, and I had no idea until months later that, hey, Dave, did you know that bar it's a hostess bar? Those girls are supposed to talk to you, okay? That's why it's so easy. That's why they go up to you and start flirting with you. Now, I didn't really care so much because, number one, the girl was super cute. And number two, I was getting a hell of a lot of Japanese practice out of it. Now, I would go out to this bar for a few hours. I'd buy like a couple drinks, and I considered it a Japanese lesson. And when I did the math on how much I was paying, true, the drinks were really expensive, but I was nursing them. And I was getting my money's worth, in my opinion, because I was getting so much Japanese practice, and I was getting Japanese practice from a cute girl, which kept me motivated. So I had like a notebook out, and I'm taking notes, and I'm like writing, new kanji down and whatnot, and I'm learning all this from this cute girl. Okay, and I didn't know it was a hostess bar. I don't know if it would have mattered anyway, but I asked the girl for her phone number. I started kind of texting her and whatnot. Okay. And she gave it to me. And at this time, I had no clue this was a hostess bar. But I think maybe she was obligated to because she worked at this bar. And we started going out, and I had no idea I was like dating basically a hostess. Okay. And so I went on a date with her, and she said she had a boyfriend. And I didn't know what that was about. I'm like, why are you going out with me then? Okay, so I don't know what that was. Like, I paid for the date. I don't know. I guess she was just kind of taking advantage of a free lunch or a free dinner. I don't know. Nothing really came of it. But interestingly to note, I went to the bar because I was frequenting this bar, and the owner knew we had gone out. It was almost like I got the feeling she reported back to him. She was checking in with him, or he was checking in with her. Hey, I went on a date with this guy. And it was a really awkward moment. He was asking me about the date. And it was unsaid, and I totally misunderstood. I don't know what I was supposed to do in this situation. And I've asked Japanese friends, I've told them this story, and they still don't even know what to say. They've given their different opinions. And one of the opinions I heard was I was supposed to give this guy some money or something. I don't know. And I've heard that as well, is that one thing with the hostess clubs is it's really unsaid. There's a lot of kind of dark side, don't talk about it stuff with hostess clubs. There's more than meets the eye with these places. You start dating this girl, you got to pay for that. I don't know. It looks like it's out of the realm of the hostess club. It's just personal. You're going out with the girl herself, but I don't know. There's a little bit of I'll be honest, a little bit of prostitution there. And I've heard that said many times, is that hostess clubs and bars are just fronts for potential prostitution. And that if anything physical happened with the girl I asked out, or I don't know, that hostess that gave me the cheek, if she didn't give me the cheek, I don't know, maybe we started doing stuff. Maybe she was protecting me. Maybe if something happened, she was going to tell her boss and I was supposed to pay for that. I don't know. Write in and tell me if you know. I haven't heard a good answer for this. I've told Japanese friends this story, and no one has ever given me a straight answer. It's one of those dark side things that's just unsaid. You're just supposed to know, and I don't. And I don't know. I don't know how many people do know. I don't know. Is there a book I can read? But apparently that is a truth to it, is that it's actually just a front for prostitution, and that you can ask the girl out, and if she goes out with you and something physical happens, you have to pay somebody for that. How much or what the schedule of payment for that is, I have no idea. But it's interesting. Culture is interesting, huh? So yeah. It's just funny because, in the U.S., it's stuff like prostitution is just so much more explicit. Like there's ads for escorts and whatnot, and everyone knows what that is, But hey, maybe I'm speaking from an American point of view, is that of course I know what that is because I'm American. And maybe Japanese, of course. Don't you know that hostess clubs are just prostitution houses? Didn't you know that? Of course, it's so obvious. But to a non-Japanese, it's not obvious. So, I don't know. It's just funny to note, though, because if you ask an American, if a Japanese person living in America says, "What's an escort?" Because an escort is just a name for a prostitute, but you don't. I mean, it's not like defined that way. It's like a prostitute has this definition, but an escort has a different, definition. So it's possible that a Japanese student, for example, comes over to the U.S. to study abroad, and what's an escort? That question could be posed, and an American would say, it's a prostitute. Okay, let me tell you. An American would probably just say that, straight out. But in Japan, I've asked, what is a hostess? What is a hostess club? What is a hostess bar? And I don't get that straight answer. I don't get it's a prostitute. I don't get that at all. So that's an interesting difference with Japanese culture. There's a lot of roundabout, indirect communication, of course. And that's been said a lot about Japanese culture. It's a very good example is hostess clubs and bars. It's one of those things they just don't explicitly tell you it's an escort. Maybe it isn't explicitly an escort. It's just kind of this very unsaid, subtle thing. And maybe that's what makes it attractive, because you're not just straight out paying for sex. You kind of flirt and, you date. And maybe there's this kind of element of courting that's going on that makes it more real. And I don't know, perhaps, there's crazier things that have happened. Maybe, I'm sure a client has married or dated and gone on to marry a hostess. I don't know, I'm sure that's happened. Just as maybe a client has married a stripper. So, I don't know, interesting. Hostess clubs and bars. There you go. The last one I want to cover is called omiai. And I will say I know the least about this one because I've never done it, and you'll know why. Omiai is basically traditional arranged marriage in Japan. And that's the traditional meaning of it. And the nouveau meaning has taken on kind of something else. Because in this day and age, people don't really want to do arranged marriage, right? In this global culture we live in, we don't really want to do that anymore. Okay, and that includes young Japanese people, or even of marriage age Japanese people. They don't really want to arrange a marriage. There's just too much pressure. So I will say I don't think it has that same hey, here's your guy, you're marrying him. Enough said. There's not that much pressure about it. But it does have the connotation is that if you're going to do omiai, you're looking for the love of your life. You're looking for a marriage partner. That's the point. The first person you meet, is that the one you have to marry? No, I don't think they do that anymore. But it does have a much more serious connotation than just dating. Okay? And traditionally, this is going to be family. Your mom or dad, or your neighbors, or people in the neighborhood. They're going to set up a formal meeting. It's going to be kind of like that gokon, but instead of friends, it's going to be your family or your neighbors. And here's the girl from the neighborhood, and here's you. You're getting a little older. Hey, maybe you even said, hey, mom, dad, I think it's time I got married. Can we do omiai? And mom and dad, or maybe there's the neighborhood, I forgot the name of this person, forgive me, but I'm going to say the neighborhood witch doctor. Who kind of says, this is the pattern of the stars. They do the whole zodiac, the Japanese version of the zodiac thing, palm reading, whatnot, and say, this is your life partner. The stars are aligned for you. So we will set up this meeting. Okay, so there could be the neighborhood matchmaker. That's a better word than witch doctor. That will set up this meeting, and you have kind of a formal dinner. I've seen it covered on TV. There's actually been more coverage of this on TV lately. And it looks like sometimes I've seen them wear suits, okay, and they have a dinner at a house, okay, a house dinner, which is somewhat rare in Japan, and or maybe a formal restaurant. and hey, mom and dad on the other side, and hey, let's introduce you to the girl from the neighborhood. Okay. Now, like I said, I don't think there's as much pressure like, hey, we must get married. But hey, if it works out, it works out. But it's almost like a go-con, but it's a lot more formal. There's more of that serious connotation to it, and you're not with your friends. You're kind of with more a formal setting, your family or people from the neighborhood or something. That's the traditional kind of setup for it. Now, like I said, there's been a lot more coverage with it, and they're almost like putting a new spin on it, kind of this more, this nouveau spin to it. And I've seen on TV they've actually been doing reality shows, Omi-ai reality shows. And I don't know who's first on this, but I think it's like The Bachelor or The Bachelorette. There's reality shows. But it's less staged and less rehearsed and scripted. And they have these big singles parties, I want to call them, and they call them Omi-ai parties. And they make it into a reality show. And they have a bunch of dudes who are single, and a bunch of ladies that are single, and they're a little older. They're not in their 20s. They're not college kids. They're in their maybe late 30s or something. A lot of them. And they just, on this reality show, they've been kind of covering, these Omi-ai things. They kind of do like a singles mixer type of event, and then they do maybe a more formal Omi-ai meeting type of thing. But it's kind of interesting, because it's got that more serious connotation, like The Bachelor or Bachelorette does, because, hey, there's pressure here. They're supposed to get married at the end, right? They're looking for their life partner. They're not just casually dating someone or looking for someone to meet. So, it's been interesting. It makes for interesting TV. In general, I've said this on my blog before, I'm not the biggest fan of Japanese TV, but it makes for kind of interesting viewing, culturally speaking, because Omi-ai, America doesn't really have much of that arranged marriage thing. We're a young country. We don't really do that. Unless the country, the immigrant country at the same time, does it. But American culture per se, I don't think has that arranged marriage culture. Japan does. Also is that lately they've been doing Omi-ai websites. And these are like your dating websites, but again, it has that more serious connotation. This is not for college-age people. This is for people looking for their life partner, the love of their life, the one. So if you join an Omi-ai website, it's not your standard dating website, which may be more casual. This is more formal. This is it. You're looking to settle down. You're looking for kids. So that's probably what you're going to talk about at Omi-ai, I'm assuming. And like I said, I'm gonna show my ignorance on this one. I've just seen this basically on TV, so that's like the extent of my knowledge and from what I've heard from people living here. But that's Omi-ai. Interesting cultural thing there. So yeah, that's basically the four things I wanted to cover about dating and nightlife in Japan. I thought that was interesting differences between Japan and America. That's all for now, folks. Take care. You have a good day, okay? And talk to you later, sweetie. Bye. Welcome to Japanatron.
You have received this transmission from the Comedy Podcast Network. For more shows, visit comedypodcastnetwork.com.